Hi, my name is David Chandler, and I have a few things I want to say about terrorism. This is something that has annoyed me for quite a while to even talk the language. I don't believe we have a terrorism problem in the world that's very significant, and I definitely don't think there's anything justifying a war on terror. I think it's a scam. And I want to go to some statistics here to back up what I'm trying to say. Up until 2001, we didn't even have a classification for terrorism in the cause of death in the mortality tables. So if you look up mortality statistics prior to 2001, they don't even list terrorism. Basically, terrorism is a form of homicide, and up until then it was just considered homicide. But as of 2001, they actually created a new classification. If it's the designation is U01 in the official ICD, that's International Classification of Diseases, code for mortality and morbidity. And U01 is the classification for homicide associated with terrorism. Okay. Now, in 2001, of course, there were a lot of terrorist deaths for U.S. citizens. Namely, 2001, they list 2,922, all related to 9/11, all of them occurring on 9/11. In 2002, they list 1. Now, that was also indicated that it was aircraft related, so I don't know if it was perhaps like one other temporary survivor from 9/11 who died over the year into 2002, or if this was a separate incident, so I really don't know. 2003, 0. 2004, 0. By the way, I'm going to pause there a second. Anthrax. You all probably remember the anthrax scare and so forth. Well, it says we had, the CDC reported 18 confirmed cases, 5 suspected cases, and a total of 5 people killed by anthrax in 2001. Notice something is those are not included in the terrorism statistics. So here's deaths by something that was an agent that was, as far as I'm concerned, as qualifying of being called terrorism as what happened on 9/11, and yet those were not considered, they were not tabulated as deaths by terrorism. So I don't know why those didn't get counted. I also don't know why the anthrax situation didn't get investigated. It was pretty clear that it came out of U.S. weapons labs, and therefore one would tend to suspect that it would be inside people, and there's probably fairly few people with access. And so if anybody wanted to go down the list and figure out which one of those people was involved, it would be a pretty straightforward investigative type of a thing. So I have no idea why that was dumped, unless it was somebody inconveniently close to somebody in power. Who knows? Okay, in 2005, they changed the definition of terrorism, and they changed the agency that reported it. So the statistics initially go from 2001 to 2004. In 2005, I'm not quite sure, but they shuffle things around, and so now we have 56 deaths due to terrorism in 2005, and 28 deaths due to terrorism in 2006. Well, here's a breakdown of where the terrorist events occurred in 2005. Now, by the way, these are terrorism deaths of private U.S. citizens, and it's listed by the country in which it occurred. Afghanistan 1, this is 2005. Egypt 2, Iraq 47. Israel, Gaza, and West Bank 1, Jordan 4, the UK 1, and the territorial United States 0. Okay. 2006, there were 28. Of those, Afghanistan 3, Iraq 22, Israel, Gaza, and West Bank 1, Pakistan 1, Thailand 1, territorial United States 0. So in other words, there's only 1 death since 9/11, and that may have been related to 9/11, it's unclear. Only 1 death on that entire time, which is a terrorist event or a terrorist death on U.S. soil, which is sort of interesting. How do you justify a war on terrorism with those kind of statistics? Okay, seems like the moral of the story is stay away from Iraq. That's where these terrorist events are occurring. Now, supposedly there's some kind of a criteria where these are private citizens as opposed to officials. And with all the private people we have as contractors and so forth, I'm not sure how exactly they determine which ones are terrorist deaths and which ones are deaths by being too close to a war that's going on. So that seems rather misleading in itself. For comparison, let's look at some other causes of concern. Here are some annual causes of death in the United States. Tobacco, 435,000 per year. Poor diet and physical inactivity, 365,000 per year. Alcohol, 85,000. Microbial agents, 75,000. Toxic agents, 55,000. Motor vehicle crashes, 26,000. Now catch this one. Adverse reactions to prescription drugs, 32,000. Suicide, 30,000. Excuse me. Suicide, 30,000. Incidents involving firearms, 29,000. Homicide, 20,000. Sexual behaviors, 20,000. All illicit drug use, direct and indirect, 17,000. Non-steroidal and anti-inflammatory drugs such as aspirin, 7,600. Okay, should we be having a war on aspirin? Thousands and thousands of times more deaths due to aspirin than due to terrorism in the United States since 2001. I looked up snake bite because initially that was the first thing I looked up actually. I was thinking, terrorism is way down there with snake bite, but turns out there's 50,000 snake bite deaths per year worldwide, and most of those are in Asia, but still 300 to 500 per year in North America. So that probably, I'm sure that includes Canada and Mexico as well, but still way, way higher than what we consider so threatening to our well-being that we declare war on terror. And by declaring war on terror, what it's really doing is it's putting a war on the U.S. population. It's taking away our civil liberties, trying to protect us from this non-existent threat. So it's basically a rationale to ratchet up the kinds of measures that limit your freedoms. And in other words, if you get the least little bit out of line, somebody is afraid you're going to be a terrorist or something. Okay, so go back and look for a second. That homicide rate, 20,000 in the U.S. Right? So another moral of the story: maybe we should build a border fence, but it should be a border fence to keep the U.S. murderers in, protect our neighboring countries from this incredible homicide rate. That's a way bigger threat than trying to build a border fence to keep, dangerous aliens out. Okay, so terror. If you just think of the word terrorism, terror is a condition. It's a state of mind. It's something that the person who perceives it is. It's basically a statement that the person perceiving this event is in a state of fear. In other words, terror is a state of fear. And the solution to terror is quit being terrified of a non-existent threat, or virtually non-existent threat. Way down, way, way below snake bites, way, way down below lightning strikes. Something which is has been conjured up with the express purpose of limiting your freedom and exerting control over you. So, there you have it. That's my opinion.